Antigravity's Ultra tier costs half what Cursor's Ultra does, and that gap could save you $200 a year. Both tools just updated their pricing and agent features in 2025, so I ran 4 head-to-head tests right now, and the timing actually matters. But the model quality test tells a different story, and it could flip which tool you actually pay for every month. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. And every figure here traces back to official pricing pages and model docs both companies actually publish. If you're running agents daily and paying $100 to $200 a month, picking the wrong tool is a real cost. Test 1. Pricing and total cost. The objection I hear all the time is that both tools cost the same, and I get it, they both start at $20 a month. But once you move past that entry tier, the numbers split fast. We're talking $60 versus $100 at mid-tier, and that $40 gap every month adds up to $480 a year before you've even touched the high-end plans. I looked at every tier side by side, and at $20 a month, they're identical, so that's a wash. But at mid-tier, Cursor's Pro Plus lands at $60, while Antigravity's Ultra is $100. So Cursor is actually 40% cheaper there, and at the top tier, both are $200 a month, except Cursor's Ultra bundles roughly $400 of API usage, which means more raw output for the same price. The gap is a little smaller than it looks once you factor in what you're actually getting, because Antigravity's $100 Ultra includes full model access across all its supported models, rather than a usage credit. So if you're constantly hitting model caps, Antigravity's flat rate might actually stretch further than Cursor's usage-based system depending on how hard you push it. Cursor's mid-tier price advantage made me think it'd run away with this, but Antigravity takes the overall pricing test because its high-end tier is half the price of Cursor's equivalent for similar model access, and that's Antigravity 1, Cursor 0, with the Vetter 200 a-year gap from the top of the video being the reason it wins here. Test 2. Workflow paradigm. A solo dev shipping a feature on a Friday deadline needs to know whether they're going to be driving every line manually or handing tasks off to agents and reviewing results. Because get this wrong, and you're either babysitting a tool built to run on its own, or you're fighting an agent-first system when you just want quick autocomplete on a 10-line function. What surprised me is how cleanly these tools split. Antigravity scored 8.5 out of 10 on autonomous task execution, running across your editor, terminal, and browser asynchronously without you touching it, while Cursor scored 9 out of 10 on in-editor autocomplete, which is genuinely fast and tight. And on parallel agents, both scored 8, so that's a wash. This is the most use case dependent test in the whole comparison, because if your workflow is mostly quick edits and line-by-line iteration, Cursor's autocomplete is going to feel way more natural. But if you're handing off bigger tasks and want agents running in the background while you think, Antigravity's paradigm fits, and neither is objectively better. This one's a tie. I went in thinking Antigravity's agent-first design would pull ahead, but Cursor's autocomplete strength is just as real in the other direction. So neither takes it, and the score stays at Antigravity 1, Cursor 0, 1 tied, because the workflow test comes down to how you like to work, and that's a preference call. Alright, so we've got pricing and workflow done, but the tests still ahead are context and model quality. And model quality is where things get genuinely interesting, because Cursor has access to a frontier model that Antigravity simply doesn't have yet, and that could matter a lot depending on the kind of work you're doing every day. Test 3. Context and multi-file editing. The number that matters here is how many repos your project spans. Because if you've got a front end and a back end living in separate folders and your tool only indexes one workspace at a time, your agent is going to start hallucinating connections that don't exist. And that's the exact failure mode this test is designed to catch. I ran 3 subtests here. Antigravity scored 8.5 on multi-folder project support, natively spanning front end and back end in one project context, while Cursor scored 7. But flip it for codebase-wide understanding, and Cursor's workspace index scored 8.5 versus Antigravity's 7.5. And on persistent memory, Antigravity's knowledge items scored 8 versus Cursor's 6.5, because Antigravity actually remembers things across sessions. The gap here is pretty small overall, and it really depends on your project structure. Because if you work in a single monorepo, Cursor's workspace index is strong enough that you probably won't feel the difference. But Antigravity's edge shows up when you're juggling multiple repos or need context to survive across sessions. And if that's not your situation, this test is kind of a wash for you personally. Another tie. Antigravity's multi-folder support looked like it'd pull this over the line, but Cursor's codebase-wide indexing keeps it even, so the score stays at Antigravity 1, Cursor 0, 2, tied now. And which tool wins here really depends on your repo setup. Test 4. Model quality and reasoning. Antigravity caps its Claude Opus thinking at roughly 1,024 tokens. So if you're running a complex refactor or a hard reasoning task, that cap is going to bite you. And Cursor has Claude Opus 4.7, which dropped April 16th, 2026, while Antigravity is still on 4.6. And that version gap might sound small, but on a hard SWE bench task, it's the difference between a clean solution and a half-done one. There's a clear gap on Frontier access. Cursor scored 9 out of 10 on Frontier model availability because it has Opus 4.7 right now, while Antigravity scored 6, stuck on 4.6 with that thinking token cap. And on SWE bench, verified Antigravity's models hit 80.6 to 80.8%, which is strong. But Cursor's Opus 4.7 wasn't benchmarked in that same setup, so these aren't a direct apples-to-apples comparison. Take this with a grain of salt because Antigravity's models are genuinely close in benchmark scores at 80.6 to 80.8% on SWE bench. And the gap is really about access and flexibility rather than raw reasoning quality on tasks that are already supported. So if Antigravity's model lineup covers your actual use cases, the version difference might not matter much day to day. Cursor takes this one. The benchmark scores looked close enough to call it a tie, but the model access gap is just too wide, because Cursor has Opus 4.7, GPT-5, and multi-model routing while Antigravity has fewer options and a thinking cap. So that's Cursor pulling level at Antigravity 1, Cursor 1, 2, tied. So here's where Antigravity clearly wins. The high-end tier is $100 a month versus Cursor's $200 for similar model access. So that's 2 times cheaper at the top. It's genuinely agent-first running async across your editor, terminal, and browser so you architect instead of type. Knowledge items give you persistent memory across sessions, and multi-folder projects give agents full-stack context out of the box. And here's where Cursor clearly wins. It has Claude Opus 4.7 right now, plus GPT-5, Gemini, and Composer. So you get real model flexibility that Antigravity can't match yet. Its in-editor autocomplete is faster and more integrated for hands-on coding. Mid-tier pricing at $60 a month beats Antigravity's $100, and the workspace index gives you strong code-base-wide understanding in a single repo setup. I expected one tool to pull away, but it finished 1-to-1 with 2 ties, which tells you these are genuinely different tools rather than better or worse ones. So the call is this. If you want the cheapest way to run Frontier agents and you're okay with a new paradigm, go Antigravity because that $1,200 a year saving is real. And if you need Opus 4.7 and hands-on autocomplete, go Cursor. If you want to see how Antigravity stacks up against the tool most people compare it to first, I put together a full breakdown in my video Claude Code versus Google Antigravity. And the result wasn't close, so that one's worth watching next if you're still deciding where to put your money.